What up? This is Yomo, the legendary West Coast connector, Mr. 6 degrees of West Coast separation. You name them, I'm connected in 6 moves. And you are now tuned in to Quality Control, the podcast. Yo, what up, y'all? We back here with Quality Control again. We here with my man, Koen. Yo, it is fucking 1 o'clock in the fucking morning on the mixer schedule. Yo, this is how mixers work. But I'm excited. We gonna do this shit. We open. Yo, what's up, brother?
What's up?
Give me
How
some.
you been?
I'm good. From what I understand from talking to you is like you started in Europe in like what? You were like 14 years old,
Yeah.
or
Actually, I was 12.
how does that work?
It's an interesting story. So my parents, I have an older brother and sister.
Right.
So what my parents used to do when we were like 6 years old,
Right.
they would put us through music school outside of like as an extra curriculum, thing to do. They would put us through music school.
Now, was that unique to your family, or is that kind of like a Dutch thing to do? Because again, we're talking about cultures here. So is that cultural, or is that unique to your family?
No, it was very cultural. Because I remember back, when I was growing up.
So you got homies and shit.
Yeah, there were like a bunch.
You all went to
bunch of families that did the same thing to the children. So of course I was hating it because it's a lot of theory. It seems very complicated, but hindsight is 2020.
Right.
That a lot of families in Holland did. They send their children to music school.
Right.
The same way we go like soccer practice and all of that.
Right.
So the funny part was that I hated it so much because it's all theory based.
Right.
And you always
music theory.
Exactly.
Right.
So as a kid, you're like, no, I just want to play and do what kids do.
Right.
But hindsight is 2020.
Well, hold on. Before we go any further, what do kids do in the Netherlands?
We all play soccer. That's like the main thing that we do. We play soccer.
Football.
Exactly.
In Europe, it's football.
Yes.
Soccer here. Okay, go ahead.
So, you played soccer, you went to music school.
Right.
Outside of your regular school. And it was funny because at some point, I remember my older brother got some pirated software back in the day. You had to...
What, pirated music software? To
Yes.
make...
To make music.
To make beats.
Exactly.
Beats.
Exactly.
Okay.
So the funny part with that was that, how it works as a kid when somebody tells you, no, you can't do this or don't touch that. You're like, I'm going to go and try out whatever that is.
Right.
No, you don't tell me don't do it.
Right.
I'm going to do it.
Go do it.
So exactly that happened because my brother used to he had a weekend job. So he would go away at certain hours. And we had one family computer where the software was installed on. So every single time he would leave for his weekend job, I would dig in and just start, playing around with the software.
Now listen, at this time, although you were doing EDM, was American urban music prominent? So when you were messing with the software, were you were probably predominantly doing like EDM beats? You weren't doing like hip hop beats and shit, right?
The funny thing about that was, I remember that a lot of my family members, cousins, and even my brother, they had like CDs, like they had the NWA CD, the Tupac CDs.
They had the NWA CD?
Yep. And to be honest...
Hold on. I named that group, right?
Yes, you did.
My man.
You did. I remember that. Props for that.
Go ahead.
So, to be honest, I hated it. I couldn't listen to rap. Thought it was like monotone. And,
Well, hold on. Let me ask you this. I don't mean to cut you off now.
Yes.
There was no racism involved. It wasn't like you couldn't listen to it because, who are these black guys?
No,
was it?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
It was purely about, because
the sonics of it.
Sonic. So it seemed very repetitive with a lot of things. And, of course, rap, there's not a lot of melodic stuff happening.
Right.
Because you got to remind...
Well, at that time.
Right. Because you got to think about how I grew up, how EDM was becoming prominent. So we had influence from rock music and EDM. Everything was pretty much melodic.
Right.
Versus when you hear rap music back in the day, it was very monotone.
Right.
So I had an issue with not being able to, keep my attention to it.
Right.
So that's where that stemmed from.
Right.
Although on the opposite side, here in the US, it was really trying, it was blossoming. So the whole urban community was blossoming.
Well, what years were these for you? When you were a kid, what was the hot urban American rap record? Because you mentioned NWA, but I know you're a lot younger than that. So Like, what was relevant? Like, okay, so like when you were 14, what was the dope American hip hop?
You're gonna laugh about this. Remember Q-Tip?
Love Tribe Called Quest.
So it was Q-Tip. I forgot which record it was, but it was like late 90s.
Okay.
So I think it was like 97, 98.
Okay.
So it was around that time period.
Well, now was y'all fucking with gangster rap? Because listen, you said 97. In 97, like Snoop was well established. Yep. Dre, who you now are affiliated with, you know, somewhat. That was on point right then. Like, were you like, was that like hot in the Netherlands at the time?
It was. And the funny part about that was, you know, you had friends at school that would dress up in Kalkani clothing and all of that, but they were white.
What kind of clothing?
Kalkani.
Oh, Carl Kanai.
Kanai.
Got it.
There you go.
Yeah.
See it right here.
Wait, in the Netherlands, they
white teenagers.
Oh,
so you got to think about how they were dressing, like they were thinking they were like West Coast, you know, gangster rappers.
That's funny.
It's hilarious. I'm telling you, it's hilarious.
That must have been something to fucking see. I mean,
it was funny.
Maybe not so much for you, but like from a guy from America in the urban scene, the West Coast scene, to see that.
Now, trust me, if it was funny for us, imagine how much more funny
it was for
people
us
growing up out here.
Yeah.
And knowing really the culture and, you know, society around it.
Right. So you didn't really deal with that part at that time in your musical career. You was more EDM.
EDM. Everything was EDM. And the beautiful part about that was I signed my first contract with Chesto, who was nobody pretty much back in the day. Who was just starting out? DJ Chesto.
DJ Chesto, okay.
So he was just starting out. He just had his label done. I remember he did this opening night at a club in Breda in Holland, which was his hometown.
He's a Dutch guy, obviously, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And it was like the launch of his record label.
Right.
His publishing company. So I signed with his publishing company.
How old were you? 14.
That's when I was 14.
Oh, you're a young man. Kind of like myself. Let me tell you something. I don't mean to cut you off, but check this out. My first record, I was 17 years old. I went under a different name. I went under Dezo Daz and Dre and NWA. They used Compton. That's my voice. Believe it or not.
Oh, wow.
That is my voice. I was 17 years old. So the point I'm trying to make is that I can relate to being like a teenager and like still living at home, but like dealing with these professional people. So go ahead.
No, it was great. It was great because, you know, still going to school.
Yeah.
But they reached a point where even teachers understand what you're doing.
Right.
Because I already had like a few interviews with like local TV and some magazines, a couple of like minor records were out.
Right.
And the great thing about that was that teachers started to vouch for me for like skipping school. So I go to the point.
Oh, so it, like you got to the point to where like, oh no, he's missing school because da 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 da. Wow.
They would fill it out as if like, I was not absent, I was actually present.
Oh. So they marked you present when you weren't there.
I was either in the studio or I would go on tour with them, travel around Holland or Europe.
Wow.
So it was a really interesting, like, you know, experience for me, especially as a young teenager, to go through all of that.
Yeah.
And get a vouch from, you know, teachers.
Yeah.
It's a strange situation.
Right. So take me on a journey from the Netherlands to America. Like, how do you go from being a producer? Now, you were producing music in the Netherlands, right?
Right.
So how do you go from being a producer to a mixer? Because I got to tell you, I produce a little bit myself, and I'm a terrible mixer. So like, how do you do that?
Same thing. So doing all this production work,
right,
and then having all the commentary from everybody else. Hey, the mixes suck. So I started overemphasizing the mixes. So from the production end,
wait. Who was telling you the mixes suck?
A&Rs, friends, family.
So wait. A&Rs I get, but friends and family, these are people who know nothing about the business or nothing about mixing. How are they qualified to say whether or not it was good or not.
Right. They won't say the mix necessarily.
Okay.
But sonically, they can hear like, hey,
This was
it
too
sounds
loud.
great, but yeah, it's like there's something right with it compared to whatever else they were listening to.
Right.
So I went from that whole production spree to, okay, my mixes suck. How do I attack this? So I started emphasizing the mixes, ask around with all the producers, hey, how are you guys doing this? Because remember, back in the day, EDM had such small budgets that everybody was, producing it themselves, recording if there were vocals themselves, mixing it themselves.
Wait, so kind of like where hip hop is now. In Europe, you EDM guys were like 14 years old, sitting in your basement with your laptop, had a music program, and you were making beats.
Exactly.
Okay. Interesting.
Exactly.
Interesting. So you know, like you said, A&Rs or your family or whatever were telling you that, yo, this is off. So you start focusing on mixing. Go ahead.
Exactly. And back then we didn't have YouTube the way we have it nowadays.
Right.
Because back then there wasn't even YouTube, so you couldn't even like Google anything of like, how do I make this sound like that, or how does XYZ make this sounding the way it sounds.
Right.
So the only thing to achieve that was to find somebody that was doing it. So I started applying for internships.
Oh.
Exactly. So the interesting part is in Rotterdam, one of the major cities in Holland.
Rotterdam?
Yes.
Rotterdam. For, American people. Go ahead.
It's like the next big city after Amsterdam.
Okay.
We all know Amsterdam.
Right.
So there was exactly there was like a brother and sister, Joja and Francis Jules. They used to work a lot with Rosie Gaines, Prince, Eddie Murphy. They were like songwriters. They were from Holland.
Oh, okay.
So they lived in America for a various amount of years. They moved back to Holland together with Joja's husband, which was Paul Tubbs Williams, famous bass player from the UK, Incognito, Light of the World. So they had a very ambitious project.
Right.
Heineken building, so the beer brewery, Heineken.
Yeah.
In Rotterdam, they no longer had to build a studio in there. Super expensive, super ambitious. So they were like, we need people. So they hired Dana Bailey, who was Prince's former engineer and technician, to be the main in-house engineer, and went through applicants and tryouts. So I got a tryout, did a tryout. They liked my personality. They liked the knowledge that I did have, thankfully, because of the production thing that I was doing with the EDM. So they ended up hiring me in an internship program.
Huh.
So I did that for like a couple of months until they went bankrupt because it was so ambitious. But the good thing out of that
nobody was getting paid.
Nah.
Well, you lived at home at the time, so it wasn't like
it wasn't
you had bills to pay.
No, it was more like traveling expenses.
Right,
of course.
right.
You were provided food and necessities to live.
Absolutely.
So after a couple of months, it died out. They went bankrupt. But right before that, Diddy was actually in Holland doing a tour. Yes, Diddy.
Well, but like what? With Dirty Money, or was it just Diddy? Or
prior to that.
Okay.
So it was like.
So wait, what years were these?
Early 2000s.
2001, 2003. So like
around 2003, 2004.
Okay.
So they were performing in, I think it was Rotterdam, in the city itself.
Right.
Big soccer stadium.
Right.
And they were in need to record something, so they came to that studio. So it was Diddy, Jack Knight, his very first songwriter, which I'm still very good friends with.
Right.
Mario Winans, the producer.
Yeah, Mario Winans. Yeah.
Exactly, and there's a few other people.
Yeah.
So, they did that thing. They liked my personality. They liked what I was doing. So they, on their end, were the same way. Like, why don't you just, come to, America? And
so it was Diddy and his team that kind of influenced you to come to America?
Originally.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's how I made the transition from Europe to America.
Right.
So I did, because with the Dutch treaty that we have with America, you can travel for 90 days as a visitor.
Okay.
To the US.
Right.
So that's what I started doing. So, did some work at Daddy's house, moved back to Holland, kept doing my thing over there.
Right.
And then at some point I had a few friends and relationships built up in the UK. So I started doing stuff in the UK because the European Union were able to travel without, any visas or anything within Europe itself.
So wait, so you really kind of get in this country you come through like England first to kind of,
Technically, yes.
Okay.
Yes. So in England, I work with a producer named Harmony Samuels,
Okay.
which nowadays is pretty big out here.
In the States?
Yes.
Okay.
He did. We pretty much moved around the same time to the US.
Okay.
So he did a lot of work for Keisha Cole, Chris Brown.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he's
an engineer, mixer,
producer.
Okay.
So he has a whole full production team nowadays.
Okay.
Originally got signed to Rodney Jerkins.
Okay.
That's how he made his transition. But
Right.
prior to that, we worked together. We worked with a UK artist named Keisha White. She was pretty big back then in the UK.
Okay.
R&B, so that's where my roots started changing from EDM to more the urban.
Oh, okay. To American urban.
Exactly.
Because I'm pretty sure, like, even in the UK, R&B is not R&B. Or is it? You tell me. You tell me.
Because we all know the UK has a really different market from any market out there.
Right.
Even nowadays with Dre just putting out his album, doing the whole grime thing, which is really a UK
thing,
genre from hip hop.
Right. Now, it was it garage first and then grime?
Yes. And before that, it was two-step.
See?
Remember?
Yes, I know some stuff.
You know your stuff.
I know some
you
stuff.
Know your stuff.
Yeah.
Craig
okay.
David, that's how that whole.
Yeah. And you notice how I said garage instead of garage.
Yeah.
In America, we would say, oh, that's garage. But in Europe or the UK, they would say garage.
Garage, mate.
Right, garage, mate. And so that evolved into grime.
Yeah.
And then, now you just said that Dre started doing some of that, Dr. Dre?
No, Drake. Drake just did that.
Drake.
Because you know how he tries to find the...
Yeah, Blim.
Yeah.
That term, is it? What is that? What is that term? I'm not quite sure. What is that?
It's difficult to define what the term is. It's just like a certain sound that they develop off, of course, off the roots of like, the back in the day hip hop, the more simple form of everything.
Right.
But to reel it back in. So I was in the UK.
Reel it back in.
Exactly. Working with Harmony and all of them, doing my thing.
Yeah.
I already had the connection with Jack Knight and the whole Diddy camp. So, 90 days UK, 90 days US. So I got introduced to Joel Santana. So I started doing some work with Joel's.
Wait, so when you get to America from the UK, your first little work is with Joel Santana?
Well, it was first I got brought over by the whole Bad Boy camp.
Bad Boy camp, okay.
Because of the studios that they had, the Daddy House in Manhattan.
Right.
That's when, everybody near like the Jersey guys,
they all recorded there.
They all recorded
so
on the
I
area,
guess
like,
so Jules was there.
Exactly.
Copy. Okay.
So that's how the Joel Santana connection happened.
Right.
And back in the day, Joel was best friends with Lil Wayne. That's how I got tied in with Lil Wayne.
Shout out to Tunchi.
Exactly, that whole camp.
Right.
So that's how I started migrating and changing from the EDM world more to the urban world.
Was that hard for you? Like sonically, like, because I don't know. It seems like EDM is different, but maybe not, because like hip hop is, at least today, is programmed. Listen, hip hop it's not, EDM stands for electronic dance music. Hip hop is not dance music per se, but it's definitely electronic.
Oh, totally.
So sonically, it probably wasn't a stretch for you to go from EDM to hip hop, because it was just all programming anyway, correct?
Correct. Not a far stretch, but still a certain challenge if you're not familiar with the approach.
Well, you're European.
Exactly.
And hip hop is an American music, is an American phenomenon. So you culturally, I guess I should say, it was just a little tough for you to grasp onto, but obviously you got it. Go ahead.
Totally. Which is an interesting part, because we're always talking about the subs, the low that you need to feel and all of that.
The bass.
Exactly.
Hip hop is bass.
Which is funny, because a lot of people think that's what EDM is, but it's totally not. Totally, EDM is not that bass heavy.
Now you're talking as a mixer, though.
As a mixer.
Listen, a person just listening to EDM, it sure does feel very bassy. So I guess like when people,
perception of.
Correct. When you hear people talking about, oh, EDM is bass or bassy, You're talking to like layman people, not people who mix for a fucking living. So I get where you're coming from, but come on, you
remember back in the day, you had 2 different drum machines which you program drums on. So remember, EDM had the 909 drum machine,
right,
and of course, hip hop had the 808, which was going way lower than the 909.
Wait,
bass wise.
Okay, that's what I was about to ask. Lower bass wise. Yeah. So when you say lower, you mean like boom, like it was more bass heavy.
It's like you feel it more in like your stomach versus your chest.
909 was more punch.
Yeah.
Which is perfect for EDM.
For on the floor.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so go ahead.
So that was the main difference. So you had to really approach a mix way different. Right. From, EDM all like punchy and all of that,
right,
to, very sounding digital and clean, to going to the urban end with hip hop and rap where it's more raw. So you have to capture the feeling. Yeah, but it was like all about feeling.
Yeah.
Which is way different than EDM.
Right. And so I don't mean to cut you off, but for everybody out there, what's so interesting is that when you get into the different genres of music, be it hip hop, be it EDM, be it rock, be it country, or whatever, the mix is going to be different sonically because, I don't know, maybe the instruments are different. Because like, listen, if you're playing rock, obviously using guitars. If you're doing a lot of jazz, you may be doing a lot of horns. If you're doing EDM, initially you were using the 909. In hip hop, you were using the 808. Those are like vastly different sounding instruments, so you have to mix accordingly, right?
Totally. So it's a process of adapting.
Right.
But again, the good thing is having great teachers.
Okay.
So throughout the years, I gained great mentorship from people. One of them was Dave Pensato, which a lot of people consider as like the godfather of mixing.
What about Chris Lord? Chris Lord.
Oh yeah.
I mean, dude, he has
rock. But the reason why people call Dave,
he's a rock guy.
Yeah, the reason why they call Dave so much is because Dave really was like the first superstar, so to call, about as a mixing engineer.
Okay.
Because he went out there, did the interviews, has his own show now on the internet.
Right.
Versus, we're always behind the scenes. We just,
right.
We're there to service the record.
Right.
Instead of,
well, listen,
the forefront.
The reason why I brought up Chris Lord, or is that how you pronounce it? Elgin. Okay, is because like I said, I produce a little bit, and I have the Waves VST, and his presets are on there. So like, this is the first guy that I, as far as mixing. Because listen, let me tell you. Most producers, you take your I'm sure like your Metro Boomins and all these very well-known producers, they're accustomed to working with engineers, but you got kids in their bedrooms, or I get on Twitter and I don't know, 6 or 7 guys are advertising that they make beats. They're not really familiar with like mixing with like pro mixers. So, and I was the same way. So when I saw Chris Lord, I was like, okay, so this. And I had no idea these are all like rock presets. Is that what you're telling me?
Basically, yeah. Chris is like one of the main mixers for the rock genre.
Oh my God, and much respect to him. But it's like all this time, I've been like using his presets on hip hop fucking beats. Oh my God. See, listen.
No, the funny thing is, not to cut you short.
Okay.
Because you use something outside of the genre,
right?
It influences the sound that you're doing, which in essence can create a unique sound for what you're doing, versus sounding exactly the same as the next person.
This is true. This is true. But let me tell you something. For the school that I come from, I'm an older guy, and just the thought of
using rock presets,
just like rock presets or like hip hop, is like, what are you doing? That's crazy. Like, you know what I'm saying? But I get it. I guess I never thought about I guess I never had to think about it because I didn't even know that Chris Lord was like this rock guy. But, now that you mention that, I guess it's cool to like think outside the box. I'm just afraid of like, rock being a little more mid and treble heavy.
The guitars.
Yeah, versus bass heavy. So it's just like, to think about like using like rock VSTs or like hip hop, which should be muddy and like bassy. It's like, oh my God. But go ahead.
It's true. But, we all get the different influences because I think the reason why I sound different than the other guy or the next guy is because of my EDM background.
Right.
Because I bring certain elements in, and like we said before, especially with the drum machines, everything is more electronic, like you said. We're delving into the elements that we used to have and still have in EDM.
Right.
That are now also present in hip hop and rap and R&B. So you get it to treat slightly the same way,
right,
and still figure out the feel and that like you said, the low end, the muddiness, the rawness of what the genre really represents and what the emotion is trying to
Correct. Yeah. And you know what? You bring up a really interesting word to kind of articulate the feeling or the sound, and that word was emotion. I guess, and God, all these years that I've been in the music, I've never really equated that word with genres or sonics, if you will. But like, you're right, the emotion sonically is so different in hip hop, and I guess that's why I'm like, oh my God, I'm like using rock VSTs to like, that's not going to convey the emotion. But like you said, thinking outside the box, that's something different. But yeah, that's really interesting, man. That's interesting.
Want to hear something more interesting?
Yes.
I've always been an extremely technical mixer.
So you're a perfectionist?
Yes, but until I got with them joints, and them joints being Dr. Dre's right-hand man production-wise.
Okay, perfect. I'm glad you just went there. Let's take it there.
All technical. Everything sounded fine, technically sounding fine.
Right.
Until you're in the room with, legends like Dre. He's all about feel. So I started learning and adapting how he would approach the mix process. Because I would be sitting there and be like, no, this is supposed to sound like this or supposed to sound like that. Because technically that's correct. Until you hear how incorrect sounds, but it feels good. And at the end of the day, you get the emotion of the song, you get the emotion of what's being relayed or try to be relayed to the listener. Because at the end of the day, like you said before, as a listener, you don't know what a mix is supposed to sound like, whether that's technically correct or incorrect. It's about how does it make me feel? Does it remind me of anything in my life? Maybe I'm just going through something or went through something and it reminds me of something. So that's where the whole feel aspect came into play.
That's how important a mix is, and that's how important a mixer is to the game and the project. Yep. So let's do. I want to piggyback and touch on the emotion and the feel, because it sounds like coming from EDM, you approached it very scientifically and technical and almost like book smarts, for lack of a better term.
We know how we white people like everything on the grid.
He said,
no swing,
I didn't say
no feel, no rhythm.
No salt. Food is bland. Anyway.
That's how I grew up in Holland. No seasoning.
No seasoning. So everything was very technical. And so you come to the States via Diddy and his camp. But are you saying to me that you really, because you didn't touch on this when you were with Diddy and them, you touched on it once you got with Dre. Are you saying that like up until you got with Dre, you're here in the States through Diddy's camp, you were still approaching it very scientific and digital? So Dre is kind of who taught you how to feel?
Yep.
Wow. Okay. So what was that like?
It's, in the beginning, because you're so used to it.
Sure.
We always get set in our ways.
Yeah. You were out.
So you
were in your comfort zone.
Exactly.
And Dre pulled you out of your comfort zone.
Meanwhile, we all know everything for growth happened outside of the comfort zone.
Right.
So I had to really open up my mind and stay open to the idea of like, maybe I like it a certain way, but let's see what happens with this. Because at the end of the day, who are you gonna, rely on? Somebody with the amount of success that I had, or somebody that's so many years ahead of you that had so much more success? So of course I went straight of like, let me just be a student again.
Right.
Have a great teacher, be a student, figure this out. So I started hearing how he was approaching certain things and literally looking at it like, that is completely incorrect. But then once you put your mind to it without thinking and just purely listening to it, you're like, this sounds amazing. The feel is great.
Yeah.
So you start adapting that whole process of
It's so funny.
out of the window.
It's so funny that you go into that, because it's like, that's really a metaphor for like the whole genre. It's like hip hop musically is completely incorrect,
It is.
theory wise, but that's what makes it so right.
Yep.
It's so wrong that it's right. And listen, as a mixer, I'm sure you had projects come across your desk where you had to, record companies like, hey, can you make this sound better? Because this sucks, right? I'm sure you've heard like shit that was just fucked up.
Oh, yeah.
Just completely wrong. But it was so wrong that it was like right. Have you had that come across your desk before?
I've had it, but I had both extremes. One where it's completely, messed up and wrong all the way sonically, but feel-wise, everything is there. That's what I can never take away from a great performance.
Right.
Do you want to have somebody sing, in a way where, okay, technically and sonically everything is what it needs to be, or do you want to feel the emotion?
Right.
We want to feel the emotion. We're humans.
Right.
And at the same time, I've had it on the other opposite, where they should have done a better job and should have redo it, but they've never redone it or want to redo it.
Right.
So my mentor, to come back to that, Dave Pensado, at one point I had to text him and be like, I'm stuck with this. They don't want to redo it. It's completely, crap. What do I do with it? Guess what he texted back as a response?
What did he say?
Embrace how fucked up it is. And excuse my language.
Oh no.
Completely.
You're free to talk like that.
So he said, embrace it. So I went in and was like, you know what? It's fucked up. I'm just gonna take it as is. It's fucked up as it is. It's gotta be like this.
Right. Now let me ask you this. You went into like a duality. And what I mean by that, root word being dual too. You said that like it was really fucked up sonically, but emotionally it felt good. Have you run across a project or dealing with Dre where it was fucked up? No, that's not what I mean. Where it was sonically, sonically fucked up, but still felt good, and like you were able to like mix the two together. Is that possible for it to be so off but on, but still feel good? Or does it have to be one or the other?
It is. As long as the main element is the feel, the emotion, you're good.
So feel is more important than technical.
Totally. Because remember, everything we experience in life is emotion. It's happiness, it's pain, it's sadness.
Right.
It's not like we live this life where it is one constant.
Right.
It always varies. So we want to feel a certain way.
Right.
So if the feel is there, it's okay. If the feel is not there, we're going to question it. Because we're going to be like, wait, something is wrong with this.
Something's off here. It's like, I'm feeling it, but I'm kind of not feeling it.
Yeah, you can't pinpoint it as the listener.
Right.
When there's feel, you don't really hear it. You're like, I feel it touches me in a certain way.
Right. Now,
So
is this what you got being a mixer? Did you have that same approach when you were producing? Probably not. You're like a kid when you were producing, so you really weren't mature enough. I guess.
And because of the music school, everything, like, basically put it this way, everything for the longest time has all been technical based. That's why it's so hard for me when people say you still produce. Nah, but I know and something needs to be fixed or some additional little things need to happen. I can do it because I approached everything so technical.
Right.
So with the playing part, it's the same thing. Composing anything or making beats, I go in the technical realm of like, this is a certain formula that's been used over and over again.
Right.
Or these are the chord progressions. And again, if you have somebody that plays, they can be technically completely incorrect. Because I remember a conversation with Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis where I think it was Terry, I think it was Terry, that's the non-technical guy,
Right.
telling Jimmy,
Who's
no.
the technical guy?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it was them going into the same conversation of, he told me this, he said, you need to have somebody that is like with a barber. We can cut our own hair, but we can't see the back of our head.
Right.
So we need somebody that can see the back of our head.
Right.
So that's the same way. It's like, that's what I had with them joints and with the Dre situation.
Right.
Where it's like, I can go all technical. So I can, shave my own hair and all of that.
Yeah.
But what's happening on the back of my head? And
Right.
that's where they come in, where it's like, it's technically incorrect, but feeling.
Who told you that?
Experience.
Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis?
They had a conversation, yep.
And you were there
And it's actually an interview that I saw.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
it made the parallel happen.
Sure, you
now I
understood it.
understand where them joints and Dre and even Focus where they coming from.
Right.
Where it's like everything sounds great and all of that, but the feel, we gotta have that feeling. So we want to feel more of this and more of that.
Right.
And that's, your barber. That's like, no, let me just edge you up real nice in the back.
Get a little fade. And,
Exactly.
Right. So let me ask you this. So speaking, on Dre, what was it like working with him and just getting that? And when I say that, kind of that, when I say that, I mean kind of like it. I like some people have it and some
Right.
people don't. So when I say that, that's what I mean. Like, what was it like getting that or being around that in the studio? Because I could tell you what it was like for me working, but that's the early Dr. Dre.
Right.
And like by the time you got with him, things were completely different. So just give me some insight onto like what that was like, being with like the 5-star Surgeon General. Break it down.
The chef.
Yeah.
So Focus for years has been his right-hand man. He was the guy that always did the co-mixing with him.
Okay.
So Focus was the first one to give me the vouch of, hey, fuck with this dude.
Right.
And then I started working with Joins at the same time. So
Right.
there were two vouchers because Joins just made that transition from Focus, was pretty much going to go and do his own thing.
Right.
Still affiliated, of course, because he still
Right.
works with Dre, to them Joins taking over. So Joins got the mix vouch from Dre. But then at the same time, Jones was like, wait a minute, this white boy over here is really dope with the mixing. He's doper than what I do. He can take my great mixes to the next level.
Right.
So that was another vouch. So everybody was like, wait, let's bring him in and see what happens.
And this is pulling you from Diddy's camp, right? At this point?
Well, I was freelance.
Oh, okay.
Because before that,
So it wasn't
we reeled all the way
exclusive
back-
with Diddy.
No, because
Okay.
but we reeled it all the way back my first visa, because that's what we need to have as non-US citizens.
Right.
You need to have a sponsor. So my
Right.
first sponsor was JVU Entertainment, which was part of Timbaland Productions. So it was J-Rock. I remember J-Rock did back in the day Justin Timberlake, 2020 Experience.
Wait a minute.
A bunch of those.
Wait a minute. Slow down. So wait a minute. You name dropping right now. So you have went from Diddy to Dre to Timbaland, and I still want to talk about Dre, but my man, like you didn't really dealt with some heavy hitters.
Right. But the situation with Tim has always been, I'm in LA, he's Virginia.
Right.
So they had the studio in Virginia Beach. Of course, Jimmy Douglas was always there, his main, engineer mixer.
Right.
And then J-Rock started dealing with Chris Godby, which was signed to JVU as well. So it was kind of weird to they have their day-to-days and me kind of floating around. So there were, some projects that got, pushed my way and then others stay with them, or, when they weren't really, feeling satisfied with what happened over there, they wanted to have a different mix approach-wise. It got sent to me. So it was I'd say a business-wise, a non-successful situation.
Right.
Versus where, for instance, now where it's like Jones, Dre, all of them are in LA.
Right.
So you're there. So you're in their faces. So that's where the slight difference happened. So I was with JVU for about 3 years. Went and got a studio over at Third Encore at the end of that whole situation.
That's where I
met you.
That's where we met.
And that's how
right.
we made the transition of like, okay, that visa was expiring. Then Jones was like, okay, let's figure the situation out. We all want you part of the team. Let's not go all the way to, do the whole aftermath thing or anything.
Right.
Let's become my main mixer. So everything ties in around that circuit. And let's, be the sponsor for the next term. So that's what happened then. So during that time, of course, like we just said, I met you, and that's how we made the weird, connection.
The weird connection. And let me tell you something about this dude. So I told him when I first met him, like, I don't even know why. I guess what the movie Shredder Company was just getting ready to come out or something like that. Yeah. So, I had mentioned, my history and how I knew those guys. And immediately this fucker gets on his phone and to vet me or to do some research on me to see if I was telling the truth. Because I guess in the business, you got a lot of motherfuckers be like, oh, I know this dude. I'm down with this. I know that. I get that.
It's an LA thing, my experience.
Right. So this fucker gets on his phone, goes to one of my fucking old videos, is like, yo, is that you with Ruthless Records? I'm like, yeah. So this is who this guy is. That's so funny, dude. Fucking third encore. Third fucking encore.
Crazy days.
Yeah.
And how there's literally, you say 6 degrees of separation. I always tend to think it's 1 because it's so small, this industry. How
absolutely
just run into one person and
absolutely.
If I don't know this person, you will know the person.
Right.
So it was very intricate to have that whole moment happening.
Yeah. Now listen, when I met you at Third Encore, were you mixing stuff for Dre or were you doing EDM? Like what were you doing at that time?
I was
sonically.
Not. It was still predominantly urban.
Still predominantly urban.
Okay. And Jones had another studio over there. That's how we connected.
Right.
So I started working with Jones, and then the whole situation started evolving. I already had every once in a while some stuff from Focus, so that Dre Connect was already there.
Yeah.
It was just lingering around.
So Third Encore, how weird was that?
Strange. It's such a random spot.
For us to meet like that, and that's crazy.
And how everything is tied in at that moment without knowing each other, we being from all the way across the globe.
Yeah.
With all the history that you have with the whole West Side connection. Incredible.
Yeah, my man. So, moving forward, I'm getting a hint from you that you're thinking about going back into the EDM scene. Is that about right?
Definitely on the right track.
So what are you gonna do?
I'm just trying to evolve as the mixer that I am. Be more creative. Because what we touched on before, where you go from the whole technical aspect to, finding out and being educated on the feel of things, how to tie all of that in and have the creative availability to do so. Especially with EDM music, to just bring that extra flavor to it,
right? And
go back to my roots, where everything began, where my love for music stems from.
Right. So come from hip hop with the whole emotional feel to your mixing. You're gonna bring that to a technical driven genre, right? Because EDM is all very scientific and technical. That might be pretty interesting, bro. To bring I guess a hip hop feel sonically to the technicality of EDM. Now I know that Waka Flocka Flame, you familiar with him, right? Doesn't he do EDM kind of rap now or?
Kinda. I think a better example is Calvin Harris.
Okay.
Calvin has figured out how to make such a technical genre more soulful, so to speak. So it's where you go, like you said, from everything being that on to everything.
Right.
Hardly any feel to it, where Calvin is more bringing in the swing and the feel, the emotion. So it's definitely something where I can see the genre is moving towards anyway. With Steve Aoki doing the thing where he brings on the rappers, Kid Ink and all of them.
Right, yeah.
Just combining genres together to make it, more, more emotionally evolved, more feel evolved than just straight four on the floor, hard hitting.
Right. You know what? What's really interesting to me is that how people like Steve Aoki, who were, they're Americans and they're doing EDM, which I guess on some level is embraced by the American people. But let's face it, American people, they love hip hop.
Oh, right? They do. I think at this stage, still statistics show that R&B hip hop is the best-selling genre in the U.S.
Right.
The only difference is EDM is a commodity business nowadays.
What does that mean? I don't understand what that means.
Put it this way, we all love nice things. We love to buy the expensive watches,
Right.
the expensive cars. That's what EDM is.
Right.
But it's in the form of the big festivals. So the youth, the teenagers,
Sure. I get it. Yeah, I get it.
Guys
I get it.
and girls in their 20s want to be at that hot spot, the
Right.
EDC, festival
Yeah,
at
the place to be.
Vegas. Yeah, it's the place to be. It's, you know, we can wild out, we can do whatever we want to do.
Right.
So it's more of that commodity than, where it's like truly listening enabled, like, hip hop and R&B still is nowadays, because it's still ranking as the #1 genre.
Right, right. Do you think that like EDC will ever be embraced sonically in the States as it is, I guess, for the rest of the world? I won't just say Europe. I'm pretty sure whatever Europe does, Africa
Right.
loves.
Right.
Whatever Europe does, South America loves. Whatever Europe does, Australia loves. Do you think hip hop is like gonna be? Cause you know what, I almost feel like EDC. I almost feel like EDM is globally bigger than hip hop. Is that true?
It is. But again, you're dealing with culture, commodity. So commodity can go out of style. Meanwhile, a culture is something we live, we
Right.
breathe, we are.
Right.
Which is a whole different thing.
Right.
Does EDM ever talk about political issues?
Well, listen, I'm an American, and I'm an older cat, a man of a certain age, if you will. And the generation I come from, we really don't. Like I said, when I was coming up, this shit was called techno.
Yep.
And remember that Eminem song? Nobody listens to.
Yeah.
We're from the same generation.
Yep.
So it's like, man, dude, I don't know if America is like really like ready for that culture. Like that's just that's a stretch for me. That's a stretch for me.
That's why I keep naming it a commodity.
Right.
Because like we said, hip hop and rap stemmed from something within a culture.
Right.
Grew up to be part of a culture.
Right.
Evolved with the culture.
Right.
EDM is almost your gateway. It's like, I don't want to be at my parents' house now. I'm, pissed off. Want to be out of this. So I want to just go over there.
Right.
So it's that escape thing. It's that commodity thing.
Right.
That's why I'm like, it's something that could go out of style.
Right.
Eventually.
Like when you say out of style, you mean like a phase.
It's a phase
that like
thing.
some
Yeah.
kid will go through and he'll grow out of it and then
Remember about the whole rock
Right.
age when it was all rebellious against, the anarchy.
Yeah.
It faded out
Right.
because it was not a commodity at that time.
Right.
Because it didn't root from and it didn't stem from, things that a culture, a demographic was dealing with
Right.
and still is dealing with.
Right.
So that's where I draw the line of that's commodity, that's a cultural thing which will always evolve.
Right.
Unless, of course, problems will be fixed.
Right. So I gotta tell you, it almost sounds like you're saying to me that like, okay, EDM is a commodity. Hip hop is a culture. So is it safe to say that like EDM really doesn't have its own culture? It's just this. Because listen, and where I'm going with that is that you're right. Hip hop is a culture. There are 4 elements. Some will say 5, but I'll say 4 elements to the hip hop culture: DJing, rapping, breakdancing, graffiti. EDM doesn't have that, does it?
Nope.
Will it ever be a culture in your country? Because it's definitely not going to be a culture here.
No.
We don't even have to talk about that. In your country, do you think it would ever be like do you think it would ever grow past commodity and evolve into a culture? Or is, Europe just devoid of like new culture?
That's a very good question.
Because, Europe is a very old culture.
Yeah, technically you could and I know certain people will define it as a culture.
What, EDM?
Yeah, to a degree. Personally, I wouldn't go there based on the fundamentals.
Yeah, because you have no
foundation of
elements.
Where it comes from, exactly.
You have no elements. Hip hop has
Exactly.
elements that you need to have elements to make something a culture or a way of life. EDM is just kind of a sound.
Exactly.
So you don't think it'll ever be a culture? There are not enough elements to add to it.
Yeah. There's not enough of that history that stems from something that that needs to be heard. It's more of an escape thing. It's like I just want to take my mind off XYZ daily life for XYZ hours.
Right.
And then I'm right back in daily life versus a culture where we're in this. This is what it is.
This is how we live.
Yep,
This is what it
needs to be
is.
addressed. People need to hear this.
Right.
Right. To see change.
Right.
And that's why I see the difference between culture and commodity.
Right. Now, do you think that like the kids living in Europe from your hometown who are sure, I mean they're into EDM, but you come from a generation where EDM was kind of everything and hip hop was kind of still fledgling and growing over in Europe. At this point, hip hop is global. So with the kids in your hometown, let's just say your hometown, are they still gravitating towards EDM, or do they really embrace hip hop? And the 14-year-old kid that you were started doing EDM, it's a different time. So a 14-year-old kid in your hometown, and he gets a new laptop and a music program, what is he gonna do? Is he gonna do a Travis Scott beat, or is he gonna do a Skrillex beat or EDM?
Right.
I mean, and listen, my knowledge of EDM is very limited, so I may be using names that really aren't relevant, but
Right.
so just excuse me.
It's interesting because it's literally a divide of both.
Right.
Because you could have the group that goes EDM, but you also have the group that goes straight Travis Scott.
Right.
So there's not really a thing right now where I can say definitively,
Right.
this person's going to do this or this person's going to do this.
Right.
It's definitely like a divide of this person will do EDM and this person will do the whole hip hop.
Okay. With that being said, tell me this. So a kid in your hometown, what's the defining factor that's going to make him either go hip hop or EDM?
Culture.
What culture?
So
He's in your town.
In Europe, we deal with a lot of immigrants, and we've been dealing with a lot of immigrants.
Uh-huh.
So we're dealing with a diverse set of cultures.
Right.
So it really depends on what this person is going to come in touch with. Maybe it's already a person, originating from Africa, or from the Middle East, or it's another European person.
Right.
So that is going to define whether those cultures meet, or this person's own culture is going to, develop him into either becoming a beat maker or, going into the EDM realm. Or it could be the guy that is from Europe that is embraced and gets, in touch with a different culture.
Right.
It's like, wow, I really love what they are doing, what they're about.
Right.
I'm going to tap into their sound and their thing.
Right. Well, see that. Look, you bring up other cultures. You got Middle Eastern, people coming into your country, and we're all aware of that here in the States on the news and stuff. However, what does a Dutch kid coming in contact with, like, I don't know, some Middle Eastern kid who moved to Holland, or some African kid, what does that have to do? How does that sway him one way or the other? Because listen, hip hop is not African. Hip hop is not Middle Eastern. It comes from America. So what does a Dutch kid coming in contact with those cultures have to do with him getting into the hip hop culture? Because I don't see it. It's like, what does a Middle Eastern kid bring to some Dutch kid that makes him want to like make beats like Public Enemy? Like,
Right. So the difference is you're born and raised and grow up in Holland.
Right.
Say you're probably white, Caucasian. So automatically you gravitate to what white kids do.
Right.
Which is EDM. If you're coming from a background where you're a refugee, you're dealing with different issues.
Oh, wait. So wait, I don't mean to cut you off. So are you saying that like the refugees that come to your country, they come with this American urban hip hop sense? Is that what you're saying?
I wouldn't necessarily say that.
Okay.
But there's a set of issues that they've always been dealing with.
Right.
That gravitates them.
It speaks more to hip hop.
Exactly.
Like revolutionary and
yes.
rebel. Oh, I get it.
Because they stand for something. That's why they had to flee their countries.
Right.
Versus the European white kids. Exactly.
Right. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. And I got to tell you, I'm pretty sure most American kids, and especially, you know, people from my generation, this is not something we think about because this is not a genre of music that we are accustomed to or, quite frankly, interested in. Because like I said, and like M said, no song, nobody listens to techno, right?
Exactly.
So, you know, it's very interesting to hear, you know, those elements and those aspects of that genre because let's face it, man, I mean, hip hop is global. And with that being said, that means that hip hop artists and people who are into hip hop also have to become more global, which means exploring different cultures and understanding different peoples. And man, that is something like that really makes a lot of sense. If like you're like coming from like an Africa or something, it's more rebel. So like you identify more with American urban music than like European EDM.
Yep.
Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Okay. So, man, brother, this is not, you know what? This setup is fucking nice. I mean, I love your look. What are you working on right
now? Independent artist right now. Mm-hmm. Jessica Jarrell.
Quit name dropping because I don't know who these people are. Just sorry.
No, it's like, what the fuck? You got me off guard.
So you're working on some, is it EDM or is it hip hop or R&B?
Pop. Interesting enough, this is pop. So it's right in between.
Right.
So it's literally a sandwich of EDM elements with R&B elements, but with the pop edge.
Now let me ask you this, because at this point in this interview, we're more talking about you as a mixer. So moving forward into your future, do you think you're gonna get back into producing, or are you just gonna?
It's hard to say, but
I think you should be a DJ.
Well, a lot of people. Thank you for that. A lot of people have been telling me what I should do.
Well, that's easy.
Get producers, form a production team that I would spearhead, because at the end of the day, with my background and knowing production,
right,
to the point that I know with music theory and the technical aspect of mixing,
right,
it makes sense to have people come together, create material, which then I do quality control for, no pun intended, and bring that to the next level and being able to finish it from post-production to the final mixing stage in post-production.
Oh, kind of like how Dr. Dre does now.
Exactly. Exactly.
So you've learned from the master.
Exactly.
Very interesting. Well, all right, brother. You know what? My man, this is a great fucking talk.
Totally.
You know what I'm saying?
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Yo, and as we always say here at Quality Control, if it ain't qualified, it ain't this. Peace.
Hey, yo, my quality control captivates your party patrol. Your mind, body, and soul. Who the bell tolls like the rhythm explode. Big bad and